All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for stopping by. As always, today we're going to be taking a look at what has quickly become my favorite field watch, frankly, released in the last few years. This is the Timex Bespoke Post collaboration. This is a very striking field watch, very punchy colors, and yeah, I'm just loving the overall design aesthetic of this watch. I really like what Timex as a brand has been doing these last few years in particular. I think that Timex have gone all in on design. They seem to be very design first these days. You know, Timex have been in this sort of more attainable, affordable, or entry-level price point, that market segment for a while. And I think the customers within these segments are getting more and more demanding with what they want for $100, for $200. And they think, you know, instead of buying an entry-level Timex or Seiko or whatever, I can get a watch that's made in Asia, it has a better movement, it has better finishing, it has tighter tolerances, and overall I'm just getting a much better value for my money, right? More bang for buck, which I think is fair. It's people's hard-earned money. I think Timex's response to this has sort of been like, okay, there's no point in us fighting that battle, right? Because that's a losing battle every time. But what we can bring to the table is something that's harder for these brands to replicate, and that is very unique and original designs, a unique design language, a unique design philosophy that really you can see is carrying over a ton of the watches in their range. Not all of them, frankly, you know, Timex still make a lot of shitters, but they have really upped the game with specific lines, and they've been very intriguing and one to watch these last few years. I think for me, it all started with the Giorgio Galli watches. Those are watches that had very interesting, unique design elements. I love the skeletonized elements to those watches, the unique and bespoke bands, you know, interesting dials, you know, very cool watches. Watches like this, frankly, the Timex Marlin Jet watch, you know. This watch has a crazy Hesselite crystal that wraps all the way around the dial. It goes literally from case side to case side, which creates this very unique and interesting look. It almost looks like a dive watch without a bezel, and it creates this crazy amount of distortion, that vintage distortion. So a lot of like 60s, 70s charm. I like as well that they added a sort of sector dial with a sub dial at the 9 o'clock, which gives it even more visual intrigue. The prolonged strap, you know, there's no holes in the strap. You just literally push the buckle through at any point in the strap to get a perfect fit. This is a very cool watch. It's definitely one of my favorites from them in the last couple of years. I also love Timex's dive watches. Their Deepwater Reef line is very compelling, and I like that they offer it at a bunch of price points. I like that you can go all the way up to $500 plus and get those titanium watches, and yet they have something at the lower end of the market, like sub $200. You can get the stainless steel models. Those are very striking designs, very compelling. I love those like 3D, you know, loom plots that they use. By the way, I think those 3D like loom solid blocks are going to become way more of a trend. We already saw it in that new Christopher Ward, Bark and Jack collaboration. I think we're going to see that a lot more this year. I'm calling that now. Anyway, back to Timex. You know, we're seeing these design elements as well carry through into their much higher end Atelier line, right? Like we're seeing those skeletonized elements all over the case. Now we're seeing it in the individual links of the bracelet as well. You also have the toolless design for adjusting the links in the bracelet and the micro adjust. I like the recessed hour markers that almost seem like they're sunken into the dial. Really a lot of unique and interesting design choices, all packed into one watch. And it's been a really cool shift for the brand in the last few years. I'm genuinely excited to see what they're going to do this year. I'm eagerly awaiting the new designs and releases from Timex. This watch in particular was a bit of a surprise, the Bespoke Post collaboration field watch. Now, Bespoke Post is like a fashion apparel brand. I'll admit I'm less familiar with that brand. I'm more interested in the watches. But yeah, Timex, they went back into the catalog. This is like a vintage reissue from them. This is a reference that they made back in the 70s. They dug that out of the archive to reissue this. So, you know, leaning into that neo-vintage trend. That's what I like. It's a shame that it was a limited release because I think these are all long sold out. They did not even ship these watches to the UK. So I'm based here in London in the UK, and they sold these through the Bespoke Post website, not through Timex's website. And I actually tried to order one when they first released and they wouldn't ship. So I literally couldn't get one. I had to pick this up aftermarket off of eBay, but luckily I was able to get it for even less than retail, and it already comes in at a good price, so I was very happy with that. But it took a long time. I had it on my save search for a while, and yeah, they weren't coming up because, you know, they're a lot rarer to find in the UK. I was so happy when I saw this come up. I snapped it up instantly, of course. Yeah, I've been wearing it a lot. It's been fantastic. So let's take a closer look at the Timex Bespoke Post field watch. Okay guys, this is the watch. This is the Timex Bespoke Post collaboration. This is their stunning field watch, coming in at a vintage sizing, classic proportions here, 36 millimeters with about 42, 43 lug to lug, only 11 millimeters thick. Very, very thin watch, very svelte watch. Unfortunately, it does have an acrylic crystal, domed acrylic crystal here, but you do get a lot of very dramatic vintage distortion. Look at those hour markers there, those Arabic markers just flexing in the light. I really, really like that. I'm a bit of a sucker for that vintage distortion on the edge. Comes on this really nice Cordura strap with a sort of leather inner lining, and this is of course water repellent as well, so pairs well with that sort of military inspired field watch design. This is a quartz watch, hence the ticking and the thinness of the watch. Doesn't particularly bother me. It might bother some, but I think the reason that you're buying this is for the design, right? This is one of the most compelling field watch designs that I've seen in a long time. I love the sort of pop of color on this dial. I really love the yellow on the minute track there. I love the red, that little pop of red against the black glossy dial for the inner track there. And I love that you get a slight sector dial design as well. Love the pop of orange as well for the seconds hand. A very striking punchy dial. I'm really liking the chunky design for the handset as well, for the minutes and hours. This thing is super legible, as you would expect a field watch design to be. Yeah, it just wears very great on the wrist. It has a lot of presence on the wrist given its more traditional form factor. Like I say, 36 millimeters and 18 mil lug width, but it doesn't feel it. It feels more chunky. It feels more substantial. And this thing wears really nice with that thinness. It completely hugs the wrist. It just completely melts into the wrist with that thickness. Just wears like a dream, honestly. One of the benefits, I guess, to the quartz movement is they can really slim that down. Just a simple push-pull crown and about 50 meters of water resistance, so nothing crazy. But again, I think for this watch, it's all about the dial. That is the selling point of this. Just a very, very nice, striking field watch design with some punchy colors, some playful colors. Yeah, just loving the look of this, and I love how it looks on this nice military sort of green strap. Green's my favorite color, so when I saw it was on the green strap, I was like, man, this thing is So for me, this thing is a home run. It is a slightly signed crown there with the Bespoke Post logo, as well as on the case back. Here's how it wears on my 6¼ inch wrist for reference. Yeah, this thing just wears really, really well. Love that strap design. Very striking, very punchy. It is a 36mm watch, but because of that sort of vintage cushion case design, I will say it does wear a little bigger. It wears maybe like maybe closer to a 37, frankly. But yeah, it definitely has a lot of presence given the classic vintage dimensions. I do think this will look very nice on even a larger wrist, like a 7-inch circumference wrist plus. And I think the colors on the dial kind of add to that pop and presence. This does have a lot of high polish surfaces, which some people might not like for a field watch. You might like more of a brushed appearance, but there's a lot of polishing going on, which again adds to that sort of pop on the dial. You do get this sort of very nice, rich, glossy black dial, which contrasting with the colors of the various markers, I think just looks very, very visually compelling, adds a lot of intrigue. This watch was a limited edition and it retailed for only $200, which I think is a pretty good value considering how unique this is. I found one in the UK for actually less than that. I bought mine for about 150 or so. So you can probably find some good deals on the secondary market, but you'll have to keep an eye out. Again, a closer look at that dial. I love the distortion that you get with the acrylic crystal. Very, very cool. I just don't like the scratching that you get. And this thing, as you can see right here, you can see there's a lot of scratches on the surface, and I've only been wearing this thing for like a month. So yeah, I mean, some polywatch will buff it out, but you know, it is what it is. Yeah, I've been wearing this to work a lot just because it's so legible. So when I'm running from meeting to meeting, I can just glance down and very quickly read the time. I know I'm not wearing it in the field. It's the field of meetings, rather. The field of the office is where this is getting used. Great watch, great design, and yeah, just a great price point as well. All right, so as we know, no watch is perfect. Everything's got its downsides, everything's got its negatives. What are the negatives for the Timex Bespoke Post? Well, I think that some people will consider the fact that this is a quartz watch a negative. Personally, like I said, I don't really care about that. I think you're buying this for the design. However, I do have some issues with the quartz movement, but it's more so about the sound. Unfortunately, yes, this is a fairly loud tick on this watch. Your mileage may vary on this. You know, it kind of depends how sensitive you are to sound. I have a test for quartz movements for measuring the sound. It's not very scientific, but I call it the bedside table test. And that is, so if you're going to bed at night, you take off the watch, you put it on a bedside table, it's quiet, you know, there's no noise going on, you're trying to sleep. Do you hear the ticking when it's nearby your bed at night, yes or no? And unfortunately, this one doesn't pass that test. You definitely hear the ticking at night. So in that scenario, I've had to get up, go and put it in the watch box, close the lid, that type of thing, and then I don't hear it. But yeah, not ideal. Now, don't get me wrong, when you're out and about, right, you're living your life day to day, you're doing your stuff, you're going to work, you're not gonna hear it. But when you're in a quiet environment, or if it's just you are probably gonna hear it. Also, on the model that I have, that seconds hand, it's not hitting the markers. It's not accurate in that respect. And lastly, given how much I love the dial, like I love the particular aesthetic of this field watch, it is an acrylic crystal. And for my wear, and I've only had this on the wrist for like a month, it scratches pretty easily. I have a lot of scratches on this watch already. And it does kind of bother me because it does sort of cheapen the look of the watch, you know? I know it's a field watch. You're supposed to get it scuffed. You're supposed to get it scratched. But when I am looking at it, it does kind of cheapen the look. And, you know, you'll be able to buff it out with some simple poly watch. It's not the end of the world. But some people will make the counter argument like, hey, this is a vintage inspired model. This is a 70s reference. You also want that distortion on the edge of the dial that you know, dramatically domed acrylic crystal grants you. But frankly, let's be honest with ourselves here. There are sapphire crystals that can give you that same effect nowadays, and they're fairly affordable. Now, this is a little different because usually when I'm weighing that up, I'm talking about a Seiko watch that might cost $500. And at that price point, that's when that debate really intensifies, right? Where it's like, oh, but this AliExpress watch has it and it costs $50. And it's like, yeah, I know. At this price point at 200, we're right on the cusp there of should they have sapphire or not. It would have been nice. It would have been a nice upgrade. This thing has just been a joy to wear. I love the look of the watch. I love the dial. I keep saying it. I love the strap. I love that green strap. I love the legibility of this watch. Love the pop of color. I think it's a very unique, interesting field watch. And it's a shame that it's limited, frankly. You know, it would have been nice if this was a mainstay in the Timex catalog, if this was on the Timex website. All right, guys, that's gonna about do it for me. Thank you so much for watching the video, as always. If you did like the video, feel free to like it, subscribe, really helps me out. And yeah, other than that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.